Boruto's strength after the time skip is insane, to the point where his powers rival that of the Otsutsuki gods. And one day Boruto will transcend beyond the powers of Otsutsuki and will show to the world that shinobis are in fact the superior beings. But with all this seemingly unlimited power at his fingertips, the question becomes, has Boruto become too overpowered? Well, the answer to that question is actually a lot more complicated than it may seem. There are many statements and feats from Boruto post time skip that prove that he has become by far the strongest character in the series at the current moment. And because of this, a lot of people will jump to the conclusion that since nobody comes close right now, Boruto is just too powerful. But unfortunately, like I said, it isn't nearly as simple as that. Firstly, we have to consider where Boruto came from and what led him to become this strong. So straight out the gates, Boruto had a lot going for him. He was an Uzumaki and the son of Naruto, meaning he inherited not only Naruto's crafty fighting style, but also huge amounts of chakra reserves. And I see a lot of people saying that Boruto doesn't have that much chakra, or at least nowhere near as much as Naruto did. But I disagree, and I think it came down to his chakra control over anything. Before the time skip, we see that when Momoshiki took over Boruto's body, after he used Karma V2, Momoshiki created a Rasengan which is arguably bigger or at least the same size as the giant Rasengans we see adult Naruto create. And unlike the other times Momoshiki took over, Boruto wasn't running low on chakra here, and Momoshiki also didn't absorb any other people's to boost his reserves. He was purely working with what Boruto had access to. And because of Momoshiki's insane chakra control, due to his crazy amount of combat experience, we can see with perfect chakra control, Boruto can also rival the likes of Naruto's reserves. Then he has the Hyuga blood, which is crazily underrated since it was stated that the Hyuga clan were in fact the strongest in the Leaf Village during Naruto's era. So he has some insane genetics, and on top of that he inherited those young god prodigy genes from his grandfather Minato, meaning that he can learn new techniques and other shinobi practices stupidly quickly. However, from the very beginning of the story, Boruto's potential always served as his weakness. It was stated by Kakashi when he was helping Boruto infuse a new chakra nature into his Rasengan that Boruto is insanely talented. However, he always takes shortcuts in order to learn a technique as fast as possible, meaning whenever he learned something, there would be gaps in not just his knowledge, but the technique itself. So Boruto may have been able to grasp certain concepts and abilities much faster than others, but he was always shown to not have mastery over those techniques due to him taking those shortcuts. But a lot of people say, oh, Boruto was too overpowered from the get-go, or Boruto is strong done wrong, or whatever narrative the Boruto haters wanted to create, without taking into consideration the fact that Boruto was an extremely flawed character, and that took its toll on him mentally many times throughout the show, where he often found himself realizing that due to him rushing everything, he kept falling behind and failing to protect those he loved. This caused a change in mindset, and he opted to truly work harder and get stronger the authentic way. Also, you have to consider the prodigies, which we saw from Naruto that nobody seems to bat an eyelid at. For example, Minato. The character Boruto is literally written to resemble was written in a way that meant he became the strongest in the quickest amount of time. Very similar to what happens with Boruto. But it's fine when it's Minato, but not when it's Boruto. And I think a lot of bias comes from the insane scaling Boruto characters have, where most of them destroy so many characters from Naruto that it does seem just a bit ridiculous to most people. But you have to remember, it's stated by Jiraiya that the next generation will always surpass the previous one. And I think Boruto's generation is the embodiment of that statement. But people are far too hung up on the fact that their favourite characters are getting destroyed by these kids. Anyways, the jump from Boruto pre-time skip to post does seem a little ridiculous. But when you consider all the factors that led to Boruto to become that strong, it makes far more sense than it would originally seem. So first of all, let's consider where we left off before the time skip in terms of Boruto's strength. The maximum strength we ever saw from Boruto was in his Karma V2 form, where he was able to overpower Code during their battle. Code was said to be stronger than Karamalus Naruto and Rinnegan Sasuke, which a lot of people downplay, but it means Boruto in this form is stronger than 95% of Shippuden, a statement which always manages to rattle those OG Naruto fans. Boruto in his base, however, is nowhere near close to his Karma V2 form, and the reason I bring this up is because Boruto post time skip only has his base form for now, while he is scared of using his Karma. So if we compare pre-time skip Karma Boruto to post-time skip base Boruto, the jump makes less sense than looking at both of them in their base. Boruto in his base pre-time skip was nothing special, and I think to say he was a low Kage level is a fair assumption to make. He didn't have too many feats, but a notable one was his compressed Rasengan, which is all we can really scale him off, as from that point onwards Boruto would rely heavily on his karma. Then if you consider Boruto post 3-year training, the jump is probably the biggest we have ever seen, to the point where a lot of people may find it unreasonable. Therefore, a lot of people are under the impression that Boruto is too strong now. But once again, it's not that simple, and there is so many reasons as to why Boruto was able to get this strong, all of which make sense, and I think any rational manga enjoyer could see that the jump in power is actually quite realistic. For starters, let's talk about Boruto's motivation. Boruto realizes that he can no longer rely on his karma for power, since the risks that come with that power are not only unknown but far outweigh the pros. This was also stated by Sasuke in chapter 74, who said Boruto needs to find a way to grow stronger without using the power of the karma. And we know Boruto trusted and looked up to Sasuke, and hence would have listened to his advice, with Sasuke being his sensei. Boruto also knew that he was not strong enough to beat Kawaki, Damon or Code, all people who are threatening those he loves. So a lot of his motivation in his training came down to him wanting to protect all his friends and family. This factor is so important to Boruto that he ended up taking his own life to try and protect those he loved, meaning that desire would have kept him driven to keep on growing in terms of power. So there are so many huge factors motivating Boruto during his training that he managed to master the Uchiha style in just 1 year, and Sasuke assured Boruto that if he kept training like he has been, he would easily become the strongest. So purely based off Sasuke's training, Boruto had the potential to become the strongest due to him being a prodigy, like I discussed earlier, and him also having the want or the need to grow in power. Then you have the insane hacks ability of 10 directions, allowing Kashin Koji to check many future timelines and gather all of Boruto's future techniques that he learns in different futures, then teaching Boruto in the most efficient way how to master these techniques. That is what really pushes Boruto over the edge here. This is because Boruto in one timeline had the potential to become stronger than Kawaki, Damon and Code, and all of the other threats in their world, but the same goes for Boruto in every other future. I presume in every timeline, whatever new technique Boruto learns, it will allow him to transcend into becoming the strongest. But in their current timeline, Kashin Koji allows Boruto to have access to not just the knowledge about these techniques, but also teaching him the abilities himself, each being so busted that it can take Boruto from low Kage level to a high Otsutsuki level. If you can see what I'm getting at here, Boruto has stacked world-busting techniques into his arsenal all in the space of 2 years, while also training in the most efficient way possible to master things like all forms of chakra nature, his chakra control or his fighting style. So it makes sense as to how he became so stupidly strong. But just because it makes sense, is it a good decision for the authors to create such a busted character, especially since Boruto is the MC? I mean, generically, you have the MC chasing everyone to become the strongest, but now we see a very different dynamic where everyone is chasing Boruto. So it will definitely be interesting to see what happens with this situation, but regardless of that, let's quickly discuss whether it's the right decision to have Boruto be this strong. So far, Boruto no-diff Code, no-diffed Kawaki, no-diff Mitsuki, very low-diffed Hidari, was somewhat put on the defensive by Matsuri, and ultimately caught off guard from a cross-map snipe from Jura, but realistically, if he was going all out, he could probably beat both of them. So I just listed off literally every strong character there is, and how Boruto is either no-diffing them, or we just haven't seen them fight properly yet, apart from Damon, who will be an important factor later in this video. But having all these powers leaves very little wiggle room for Boruto to gain any sort of power up. But we know that Boruto still awaits the use of the karma, and we are still waiting for the Jogon's reawakening. Meaning, it may not make a lot of sense for Boruto, who still has a lot of mental barriers to overcome in order to grow stronger, to already be the strongest in the verse. It means that we have to wait a very long time for either new characters who surpass Boruto to be introduced, or for current characters to grow in strength tremendously. However, the unknown factor is Damon here, as Damon does still exist, meaning that he still has the potential to rival Boruto's power, since it's very unlikely that Damon sat idly for 3 years now, and he most likely trained at least a little bit in order to grow a bit stronger. We see that Damon was unfazed by Uzuhiko, and it even brought a smirk to his face, meaning that he's intrigued or excited to see how far Boruto has come. But nowhere does it show him being intimidated or shocked. but showing how Damon is just completely unfazed here shows a very different level of power, as every other character who saw Uzuhiko was completely taken aback by it. Anyways, going back to the main point, Boruto will likely need the karma in the future, and he will need to spend some time either controlling his karma, or he will just need to overcome the fear of utilizing this power. But a boost in strength like that requires causation, but nobody right now can force that cause to happen, and it will require massive spikes in power from people like Kawaki for us to see a meaningful way to introduce new power to Boruto's character. And mind you, the karma, or the karma V2, is an insanely big buff, since like I said earlier, it took Boruto from low Kage level to Otsutsuki level just like that. So realistically, since Boruto is already the strongest, a buff like the karma would simply be inquantifiable, since the only person above Boruto is Shibai, so all we can do is assume that Boruto would be entering the realm of Otsutsuki godhood. So ultimately, to answer the question, is Boruto too overpowered, I still don't have my definitive answer, as I think it's difficult to tell until we see the full potential of the likes of Jura or Damon, or the other Shinju. Because if Boruto is still the strongest, then it rids the potential of his character development regarding the karma, and maybe even the Jogon awakening, which would be a massive letdown for us fans. So it is slightly too early to tell, but it's definitely a concern to have on our radars for the time being. Anyways, with that all said, let me know your thoughts if you think Boruto has grown too strong for his series and should have been slightly toned down before entering the time skip, or let me know if you think the level of power he is at makes sense and is justified. If you did enjoy this video, please consider liking to push this video out to more people, and if you want to see more content like this, then consider subscribing so YouTube recommends you more of my content in the future. But with that all said, I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.